Absolutely amazing.
And he was joint founder of the Blackheath Preservation
He
Trust.
founded the Blackheath Preservation Trust, and a man called William Davitt, who was a town planner before that became a disgraced profession. Although my son's a town planner, I have to say. Yeah, anyway. They started the Blackheath Preservation Trust, but Martin, unfortunately, Robert Martin, got a bit early senile, I think the word is. He started to lose both his sight and his hearing, and he was very trembly and wobbly. And he died much younger than I am at the moment, rather sadly. But two things really. He had started with that, the Blackheath Preservation Trust. There was no way you could save buildings in this country without acquiring them first. There was a listing system, but it was very, very difficult. It was Tower Bridge and Buckingham Palace and Stonehenge, but the really interesting 17th, 18th, 19th century buildings were not protected. And they decided that Blackheath could go the way of Elton High Street, on Lewisham, very thought. And there were lots of good things that developers were hungry and after. So they formed the Blackheath Preservation Trust, and they started to form to buy up a number of properties which were at risk. And the first one they did in 1938, which was one of the houses on Shooters Hill Road, which are called by the ignorant the captain's houses. I will not say that phrase again. Number 19, Shooters Hill Road. It's the only one today which still has its original cast iron tented veranda. And they did half a dozen properties before the war came, and then when he was getting really, really exceedingly old and difficult, further went to see him, and Martin said, "Oh dear, what am I going to do about the trust?" And Bobby and I said, "What trust?" And sunk into the security. And so he explained, and Bobby said, "Well, we can't let this go." And he said, "Look, I'll tell you what we'll do." He said, "We'll acquire sufficient shares to run the company. I'll be chairman and you'll be secretary, and we'll pay you a fee." And once again, my heart went down. So we picked up the threads of the Blackheath Preservation Trust. It was not a charity, because the Charity Commission before the war couldn't understand why the saving of old buildings and possibly be a charitable enterprise. Didn't fit with what education. There are two reasons for being a charity: education, whatever. So the first thing to do was to find something to do, and we found a ruin, or I found. It was really me, but Bobby said yes. Had a piece of string around my leg, and if I went too far, they gave it to me. I found the Blackheath Literary Institution was ruined by the railway station, and I plotted my way through it. We decided that we would restore it, and we would call it Martin House in memory of the founder of the thing. And it almost fell over because the cost of doing it, of restoring this bomb rubbish-filled shell, was such that we thought we couldn't afford it. But when the architect put in his cancellation fee account, we decided we couldn't afford it after all. So we went ahead and restored it. Half of the Environs picture library, who were downstairs, they were upstairs. And the lower half was for a design studio for a couple of local people who were very well-known graphic designers called Banks and Miles. They redesigned the telephone for British Rail timetables. They did lots of it. Anyway, so that was done, and then other things started to pour in on us. Bamborough Castle came up for sale along with two other allied buildings, and there was a great deal of worry that whilst the castle was safe, it was grade 1, it had very little ground attached to it for its size. But the Cedars and number 5 Western Park Road were very good at their time, unlisted. And so the Preservation Trust gritted its teeth. Alistair Wilson, the Blackheath Society, put together a group of people who will be willing to take a chunk each of the castle if it was converted tactfully. And the Bowyers, Gordon and Ursula, also British people, did a scheme, and we managed to rescue it. And the trust converted the Cedars next door into 4 sensible flats, huge house. You could walk down Western Park Road, you know what I mean. And then number 5 was perfectly secure and safe. We sold it on to get some money. So, we felt very proud that that department had been looked after, so to speak, and it's still there, and they had to follow all that. Blackheath Railway Station, we heard that John Lewis's wanted to acquire it to knock it down, build a supermarket for Waitrose, and put a mini station on the site with it. We didn't tell anyone that it might be a Waitrose because we knew there might be a Rhind. If it had been Tesco's, we would have had people out with banners. But we saved the railway station, the oldest railway station in this country. People say, no, it's not. We say, oh, yes, it is. 1849, it's still the same building. And having restored it, we moved ourselves into the station master's house, which was the upstairs of the station, which became our office. The Blackheath Society, Blackheath Preservation Trust, Blackheath Estate Business Company are all lurking upstairs in the railway station, which is very nice. British Rail would only give us a lease on it, of course, but there we go. The concert hall, which is a very major one, 1979, threatened by the Cater trustees with selling it for demolition, along with the conservatoire and the Blackheath School of Art. I have to say, they were all of these. And I was then chairman of the Blackheath School of Art, Music and Science trustees, and I was also secretary of the Blackheath Preservation Trust. So I had a discussion with myself about what best to do. It was very difficult. I sometimes lost my temper. But what we did, we went to the Cater trustees, and Francis Cater, who was deputy chairman of Schroeder Wag at the time, and said, we want you to split the equity. Oh, well, it's very difficult. It's my brother's trustee marriage settlement of 1922. So anyway, in the end, they agreed to separate it, provided we paid for the cost of separation, of course, there was no generosity. And the Preservation Trust bought the concert hall, last summer, and the School of Art Music trustees, that was me in another coat, bought the Conservatoire and the Art School 300. So they were all secured. But then we had the problem of restoring the concert hall, which was in very bad condition. So Cunning Further and others contacted Goldsmiths College. Richard Hoggart was then the top man of Goldsmiths, so good, sympathetic ear. We set up an independent charity whose job it was to raise the money to restore the hall and open it for public assembly. And that has been up and down, but it's fine, it worked. We got the small hall open, then the big hall opened in 1991, and then when things were looking bleak again, Trinity College, like the 6th Cavalry, came over the hills in their trumpets, and it was just what they wanted. They moved to Greenwich, but they had no performance in the rehearsal hall. And the Blackheath Concert Hall was ideal. They were taking premises down in Lee, Pentland House, as student accommodation, so it was ideal. Students could be hosed out of bed and walk up the road. So they now, after a period of this, Barbara and I, other the members of the Blackheath Preservation Trust, had a meeting with the senior Trinity people, and we agreed that we would transfer the freehold to them. And the School of Art, Music and Science restructured its charitable instrument, and that they own their freehold too. So we like to think, despite the ups and downs, that those buildings are secure in the reasonable long-term future. What else did we do? Brooklands House, which was the house of George Smith, who designed St Michael's Church in Blackheath Park, as well as the railway station, and lots of other things beside. It's been his house. It was in very bad condition and in lots of flats, and we reduced the number of flats. The Hollies in the terrace have been the prep school for St Joseph's Academy. That was not bad condition, but needed doing. Anyway, we restored it, and subsequent research during restoration was it proved to be the home of an architect called George Ledwell Taylor. He bought himself a house at Lee when there was none. He built himself a house at Lee where none was to be got, in his memoirs. Author's book. He claims that he told William IV to call Trafalgar Square Trafalgar Square. I need to call it to found. Oh, Taylor, what a sense you Anyway, so that was very pleased by, and that was immediate. All these buildings are listed now. They weren't at the time. Poplar Cottage, which is the little weatherboarded cottage on Charlton Road, which I'm rather sorry has been a bit spoiled by the new owners repainting it. And the Blackheath Art Club, which was an art club of the 1880s, designed by that very practice no one's heard of, called Higgs and Rudkin. But more importantly, that in the 1930s became the headquarters for the Crown Film Unit, which previously, of course, had been the GPO film. And some of the great documentaries were made there, including Nightmen, Target for Tonight. Humphrey Jennings, all great documentary people came there. Benjamin Britten came there, all came there. And that's been restored back to Art Club Studios. We've got rid of all the features and bits and pieces. And they are now, the 11 studios are now 11 flats, which gave them dance on. But what is nice, it has a blue plaque, an official English heritage blue plaque, and it's listed great too. Very good. So, here's Martin, Coral Martin. He was only about 73 when he died, and he died in Walton College. And he and his sister, who were not without means, decided in 1953 or thereabouts to buy this very grand house in Pennant Place, number 6. Very fine. He spent a lot of money on it. Now, you didn't want to go upstairs, it was a bit bleak upstairs. But members of the Antiquarian Society, which I joined, I was very frightened of, because they always really wise, hated having their meetings here because the house was so cold.
Well, and there was no hospitality.
Well, occasionally there was stuff of coffee, but he always landed up with him throwing his cup of coffee over himself by mistake. But there wasn't a lot of hospitality.
No.
But they owed so much to him that he could always turn up next to them. They had that picture of Gregory Page's house down the village.
Yes.
Nobody knew it existed. He just
Well, it was more than one, in fact.
Yeah, came up with it. Anyway, bless him, he and Joan, his nice sister, who was an incredibly active girl, guy for all of them, and a doggy, yeah. They decided, because they had no descendants to leave anything to, that they would give their house to Wharton College and return for grace and favour apartments in the college. The college at the time was enormously grateful. I mean, you're looking at a house which by today's money would be £6 to £7 million on the open market, and no doubt sell them. 25 years afterwards, when both Alan Martin and his sister died, Wharton College sold it, and there was a terrible row, and further still never reacted, and I went up to see the then newly appointed director, and said we were extremely disappointed by what we've done. This man has been a huge beneficiary to the college. Oh, well, we've looked into the legal side, there's nothing to stop us. So they did. And of course, we bit ourselves afterwards because, not in the footballing sense, because if we had a little bit of mouth when the legal papers were drawn up, we should have said at the time, if you don't want it, we'll give it back to the estate. But it would have then been sold and the National Trust would have got the benefit. So they left all their money. Joe left her money to the Guides, I think it was about 150,000. And Roger left all the Society of Protective Ancient Buildings and the National Trust. And his collection, now this again, the enormous and wonderful collection, through the good offices of David Leggett again, and others, were transferred.
Well, and you sort of held his hand because he was very nervous about handing it over to him.
Oh yes, well we guided him along. We found a lawyer, he had me already.
Yeah.
So there was a very good firm lawyer in Blackheath who actually visited the house. He didn't expect Robert to and visited the house and already. Yes, I like to think that we had an influence on that.
Yes.